Hi everyone, can you hear me? Hi everyone, I'm kind of unfamiliar with Insta. Um, Apparently, so is Shachi. She's having a few technical issues in logging in, so let's just give her 5 minutes. In the meantime, you can read a little bit about what this whole amendment is all about, which is the rules for accessibility if you're flying with a disability. So, yeah, apparently Shachi is going to be joining from an account called Chumachar, one of Civis's campaign accounts. So, yeah, I've sent her an invite, and let's just hang on. Otherwise, I'll be doing a monologue over here. But yeah, um, to save time, a little bit about myself. I'm Vaishnavi. I'm a member of the Disability Rights Alliance. It's a collective of people who are passionate about disability rights and who engage in advocacy. Most of the time, along with the government, we believe in working along with the government. And it's only when talks break down that we look at, other alternatives. Unfortunately, that seems to be happening pretty often nowadays. I'm also a member of a movement called the Freedom of Movement Coalition. It's a pan-Indian, kind of network of people who believe, quite frankly, that very many disabled citizens in India lead lives of house arrest simply because it's public transport is not accessible. Most methods of transport are not accessible, and even I mean if you're kind of discounting buses, trains, and even flights, if costs are prohibitive. Um, even just getting out of the house and negotiating pavements and roads as a pedestrian is incredibly hostile. So there's a joke that we have in disability circles about how the rest of India really notices disabled people only on voting day, because that's when perhaps disabled people have a more evolved sense of responsibility, uh, and what may somehow get out and make it possible to go to the polling booth even if it is inaccessible, and cast their vote. And that's the one day where the rest of India kind of says, wow, there are like so many disabled people. And you tend to notice people because of the wheelchairs, etc. But otherwise, we're mostly, kind of stuck at home and not outdoors. So, in that sense, a lockdown, you could say, was quite a leveler. And being able to attend meetings virtually in many ways, again, pretty much a leveler, even though we've kind of slid back. And, the whole idea of hybrid meetings is unfortunately not the default nowadays. Shachi, are you here as yet? I sent you an invite. There you go. And I think we have Shachi.
Hi.
All right.
Hey. Sorry about that technical glitch. Hello.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I held forth while you were
Yes, I saw
yeah.
that. Thank you so much for holding the phone down. That was a brilliant introduction, and thank you for setting that context so wonderfully.
No problem.
Shall we do a quick round of introductions and then we'll get into the subject at hand?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Shachi. I lead the governance vertical at Civis. I am joining from one of our campaign accounts called the Chumachar campaign. Please check it out when you have the time. I am joined today by the lovely Vaishnavi Jayakumar. We're going to have a chat about one of the consultations that's currently open, but not for long. The deadline for this consultation is tomorrow. So we are having this chat the night before in hopes that some of you will be motivated to go and respond to the consultation, which, as I said, is open till tomorrow. Now, this consultation is on the Draft Rights of Persons with Disabilities Amendment Rules 2023. What does this mean? What what were the rules before, what has gotten amended, how does this impact the community. All of this is something that we will be addressing today within the next 25 to 30 minutes. So bear with us, be patient, and we're going to answer all of your questions. Also, please feel free to chip in the comments, as I see that they're constantly rolling, but our team and I have got our eyes on it. So if there are any questions coming up, we'll be sure to address them either at the end of the live or in the middle, as if the context seems fit, right? And with that, I'm going to let Vaishnavi also give an introduction, and then we'll jump into the subject. How does that sound?
Okay. It's a little, I'm not going too much into an introduction because I've basically told them about a little bit about myself. But yeah, if we are looking at what this amendment is all about, this amendment has only, a couple of lines, and all it says is that there are these guidelines for accessibility as far as aviation goes. And this document, which has been released earlier, by virtue of being added in, the Disabilities Act, will kind of be statutory, and all airlines and the airlines' websites and the airports would necessarily have to kind of comply with that. Even if it's called, most people will say that if it's called a guideline, people are going to ignore it, and probably it's not going to have, it's not going to be, well, you can't, kind of pin down people and, make them comply. Not necessarily the case, because, it kind of gains statutory significance because it has been added in the Act. Another example would be the harmonized guidelines, which is a pretty comprehensive document. There's a recent revision of 2021, which is pretty comprehensive and covers, the built environment, but it also touches a little bit on, railways, on buses, on a whole lot of things. It's not restricted to just the built environment alone. And that is something which has to be followed. And mind you, a lot of people who are not familiar with disability think that the kind of rules when you build a new facility or any kind of infrastructure or even a service, people tend to think that only the public sector is required to comply. It's only the government which has to do that. Not true at all. The Disability Act is, the 2016 Act is quite clear that anything that is used by the public, if it's a public space, if it is a public facility, has to be accessible. Now, I'm going to throw a little bit of a spanner in the works. How do you pronounce your name? Shachi.
Shachi, that's right. You've got it right.
Shachi. So, yeah, I'm going to throw a little bit of spanner in the works and say something controversial because I can. And that is, I'm not in favor of what exactly the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is doing over here, because, like I said, we have this harmonized guidelines, and it is pretty comprehensive. So even when, the ministry started, taking this Accessible India campaign, a flagship campaign of the government, it kind of tried to persuade, different departments to start thinking about what their obligations were.
Right.
And to that exercise, to that intent, it was a good exercise, because you're forcing governments to think that, okay, I'm running airports and these are the things I need to do. I'm running railway stations and this is what I need to focus on. And in that sense, it's a good exercise for each of the ministries and the departments. But as far as we're concerned, we've been noticing, quite a few documents which have been coming out. Right. There's one for airlines, there's one for railways, there's, one for prisons, there's one for literally each department is coming out with its own. And it's kind of, quite frankly, getting a little difficult to keep track of everything, especially since a lot of the material is redundant. So no matter what you build, at the end of the day, your flooring, kind of rules. They have to be non-slippery, which means no polished granite. It's got to be non-reflective so that it doesn't confuse people, who are elderly or, people with cognitive issues, etc. That's not going to change whether you have, it would change a little bit. It would be even more stringent if let's say, you're a transit terminal. But otherwise, whether it's an educational institution or an office building or any other kind of facility, that's going to remain the same. If you're going to have a ticket counter, a wheelchair user in an airport ticket counter is not going to be, facing some other unique environment compared to a wheelchair user in a railway station or a wheelchair user in a bus. So if you look at the ticket counter, for example, it's the same ticket counter, whether it is, bus, train, or even a theater. So what then is the point of repeating and rehashing 90% of what is already there in the harmonized guidelines, when instead it would make more sense to just simply cross-reference. And you say, these are the facilities, and so I will still, because there are a few things which are unique to airlines and aviation. For example, the ambulance. For example, those kind of things that's kind of unique to that domain. So those things, by all means, please add them. But a group of us think that it would make more sense to just simply cross-reference the harmonized guidelines and have the rest of it as an appendix to the harmonized guidelines. So you have one document, one source. It's a little bit like if you look at most people, well, they tend to default to the ADA, which is America's Disability Act, and the ADA, kind of standards. There are just two. There's one for built environment and everything, and there's another for transportation, and that's it. There is nothing else. It's not one for prisons, one for it's never ending.
No, what
and
a lot of sense, right? No, also it's harder for people to keep track of all of these constant guidelines that are.
It's impossible. It's quite impossible.
Right there. And that's a comment that we should be making to the ministry at these various points at different guidelines are coming out. So definitely worth considering. But in terms of Vaishnavi, the draft concerned right now, what really? So, like you're saying, there weren't really guidelines or rules before this for airports, right?
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to the aero bridges and the ambulifts and the screening points and these very specific questions here that are being sort of answered for the first time. What, in your opinion, how do these guidelines hold up perhaps to guidelines that are across the world being instituted? And what do you think, I mean, in terms of quality?
In that sense, again, I would say it's like the entire ministry and the entire, Department of Disability is being othered. We do have, in aviation particularly, there are the civil aviation rules. They call the CAR, and there is a specific CAR for what they call passengers with reduced mobility. That also extends, and they, kind of, after the whole Jija Ghosh issue, that was revamped. And to say something on this, aviation and disability advocacy has ancient history. My colleague Rajiv Rajan, who has been filing PILs for exactly the freedom of movement, literally has covered buses from 2005. Kind of did a dharna and brought in the first, kind of code for disabled passengers in aviation when he, I think it was SpiceJet, I don't recall which airline, but he was forbidden from flying because people just looked at him and decided that, okay, you're going to need an attendant if you want to fly. And he did not need an attendant at all. And so he, kind of went on a dharna and kicked up a fuss and uh, brought about change, and that kind of engagement which is being driven by the disability community has been happening now for more than a decade and a half. Despite that, and despite the Jijak Ghosh issue going all the way to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court saying a whole bunch of things, I'm sad to say that even if you look at the civil aviation requirements, most of it is not being followed. Most of it is not being implemented. And who is the implementing agency over there? It's the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Now, we have been giving the same inputs. We've already given inputs. People, Arman, for example, has met, the ministry repeatedly with the sector's inputs. And still, we have not even, it's literally going to be a year. Facebook threw up a reminder about the Jharkhand issue, the young boy at the airport who was not allowed to board. And even a discriminatory provision which was introduced in an ill thought out, knee-jerk, probably well-meaning, but, kind of in a way in which the sector was not consulted, and which has implications on our freedom to fly, has not been backtracked as yet. And that is the whole decision that, yes, a person who is a representative of an airline can decide that based on your appearance and your behavior, whether you are quote unquote fit to fly.
Right.
And all this new amendment which came about last year says that a doctor can come, the airport doctor can come and give an opinion. But at the end of giving the opinion, the airline staffer still has the latitude to overrule the doctor and decide whether you can fly or not. And we did see immediately after this came into effect, we did see on social media, on Twitter and things like that, people with elderly parents and things like that saying that the whole power going to people's head. You ask for a wheelchair and then they say, do you have medical certificate? Do you have this? Do you have that? And how do I know that you will be fit to fly? And the irony is that for all people's biases that come into play when I would say biases, but I would also say it's lack of education, lack of a diverse education,
Right.
because most people have not really had disabled classmates, have not had disabled colleagues in the workplace, and so they quite simply don't know. So those kind of issues are still not being reversed by the aviation ministry, and that's pretty significant because apart from the operational issues, this is deciding whether a person can fly or can't fly if they're a little bit different. Take Rajiv, for example, the person who started this all off. Rajiv has cerebral palsy. He's a wheelchair user, but his speech is a little different because of his cerebral palsy.
Right.
Now, so if Rajiv gets angry and agitated because, people are making a whole bunch of assumptions, his speech would become even more, kind of difficult for a layperson to understand. And that's the kind of thing which would tell them, oh my God, this person is getting agitated. I don't think, we should allow them to fly. How dare people decide unscientifically whether a person is quote unquote fit to fly or not? I mean, as we said,
I hear
we
you.
predict whether a person is going to have a heart attack on flight. You sit and do ECGs then on every passenger.
Right.
you make every passenger blow into kind of breathalyzer before they board, because I mean,
Certainly.
let's face it, those are the issues which are holding up airlines, not disabled people.
So,
So
hearing from you here is essentially that no matter what guidelines are introduced, the implementation is still at the last mile. And there, I think a lot more intervention in terms of sensitization,
yeah,
education, so on needs to come in. Because ultimately,
yeah,
you can change all the rules and you can make that. But that's still where the real world implication of these laws don't really come to fruition.
yeah.
And they're imagined. And of course, intent is not everything in policy. So,
One thing
boy,
which is really problematic is with reference to the turbo aeroplanes, and it actually says in this day and age, we understand. I mean, the turbo aeroplanes are the ones which have those the door seats which kind of fold down. They're the tinier aeroplanes which kind of fly to smaller cities, etc. And that's the kind of thing in which the door just unfolds onto the ramp, and you kind of climb up the steps and you go in. So the solution that has been proposed for that, unbelievably, is that people will be carried on their wheelchairs. Now,
that's
why that is so
true.
offensive is
That's true.
that you don't need us to come and tell you that here are the solutions. You have an kind of you have Indigo with its boarding ramps, which have been around for ages. And Indigo even has a boarding ramp for this little ATR,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
craft. And why would you not just take that and adapt it and use
Right.
it? Why would
Right.
you still insist on, kind of lifting people? And I mean, that's unsafe for the traveler. It's also unsafe for the people who are going to be lifting. I mean, what about? I mean, this is India, and occupational safety and health is nowhere on the picture, but still, it should be. It's
Certainly.
not fair.
ATR operations are the only exempted clause from the new introduction of this amendment, right? That
Yeah,
all bridges or ambulances have to be made available for everything except for ATRs. And you're saying
yeah,
when there has been technology around
yeah.
for so long, it's being employed by one airline, why can't that become the norm? Very, very, very.
Seeing there every day, when the solution is staring you in the face, it takes a special kind of lack of creativity to then suggest that you get hauled like some medieval palanquin bearer kind of scenario. What is this?
Right.
In on one level, you're trying to make your uh, railway stations fancy. I mean, you're trying to fancify your railway stations, and you keep saying, make it like airports or make it quote unquote
Right.
world class.
Right.
And
Right.
they're putting polished granites on the platform where enough people are dying either way trying to catch, kind of planes. So on one level, you're doing that. And on the other level, your wonderful airport and your, the whole air travel fanciness, you're suggesting that people are hauled like luggage simply because you can't, kind of recognize a solution when it's staring you in the face.
Definitely, definitely. That's a very, very valid point there about the ATR exemption. And I'm hoping that everybody who's watching is compelled to go and write their thoughts about this as well. I'd like to bring your attention now to the other two sort of big issues that this amendment is tackling, right? One is the guideline for screening points. What are your views about that? What is the amendment saying? And for screening points?
Yeah. Okay. So there's the thing. This is again part of the intervention that we made to the aviation ministry. One of the biggest problems that people face, is security people telling you to, kind of disrobe and, kind of show that, whether your assistive aid or your prosthetic is exactly that, and in some cases, people have been requested to remove, your
Right.
article, which it's literally it is a pain. It is painful to kind of remove it and put it back, etc. And there have been a variety of solutions which kind of have been proposed, like explosive trace detectors and things like that. And it was agreed upon. Then one fine uh, day, we happened to notice, more by accident than anything else, that the BCAS, Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, had brought out a new bunch of rules,
Right.
and in that it had reversed the rules for amputees. So, I mean, yes, this whole issue kind of got a lot of prominence when Subha Chandran, kind of tagged the Prime Minister and said, look, this is happening. Each time I am being, kind of, my life is made miserable by, the CISF staffers, but they have their jobs to do as well. It's a simple thing of equipping people and making the guidelines clear.
Exactly.
Now, it was decided. How they backtracked and brought it back, I don't know. We were not aware of it. Nobody even knew that this BCS rules had kind of come out. It kind of came out by itself. And uh, it still exists. So,
And how
so
does
much
this
of it,
amendment affect that? This amendment continues that, right?
it's, you see, here again, if it comes down to two contradictory things, which one do you think the aviation ministry is going to follow? It's going to follow its own rules. I mean, we are the other. Our ministry is the other. Let's not forget that all of this is happening, and is happening after what we called us, well, within disability circle, what we called the Disabled Indians Independence Day, which was 15th June 2022. And that was the deadline for the whole of India to have become accessible. That was 5 years, after the, Disability Act, when it was notified, uh, something like in 2019, 15 June 2019, the whole of all of India's services, including websites and things like that, was supposed to have become accessible. And if you ask me, on the ground, most of our energy is simply going in making sure that a fraction of the new infrastructure which is being built in India is complying with some kind of, with the harmonized guidelines, which is, not hostile to disabled people. Forget about the retrofitted stuff. If you are to talk about Accessible India campaign, let's talk about the Egmore Museum in Chennai, where you spent a whole lot of money. You put stair lifts and a whole bunch of things, and we recently had a traveler from Kerala, and nothing works.
Right.
We've tried to address it. The tourism ministry is not saying anything. The welfare, department is not saying anything. And the ministry has spent the money and seemed okay with the state of affairs.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's more important for us to be part of the mainstream and include provisions in whatever document the aviation ministry has, rather than come up with our own things, which most of the time people are not aware
Right.
of. And we have to keep reminding people that, hey, there are these harmonized guidelines and you're supposed to be following them. And then they say, like, okay, please send us the link and please send us the details. Nobody knows. I mean, what is there in the harmonized guidelines has not trickled down to your local corporation person who is still blocking access to pavements for wheelchair users by putting bollards at 2 feet interval.
Right.
So it's obviously not entered their blue book. So then what
Absolutely.
are we going on about? every tender basically says it should comply with the disability law and then proceeds to do the exact opposite.
Of course, the cream is always in the implementation, and that I think is a huge gap that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Vaishnavi, in the interest of time, I think I'd like to ask one final question,
Yeah.
and that has to do with, of course, the provisions that you outlined, and I think one more thing that I would have liked your opinion on was the guidelines for airline websites and forms about how
Yeah.
they've what the amendment has now changed, what it was before, and what are the new compliances. Right, that's definitely one thing.
Yeah.
But also,
Nothing maybe new over there. Um, uh, let's take a simple thing like booking a wheelchair. How many airlines offer it online? Practically none. I mean, even if they do, it's like you tell us and then you call us.
absolutely, yes.
And there is, and this is surprising, there is an international practice of what is called an SSR, a special service request.
Right.
And I'm kind of constantly amazed that even in an industry like aviation, which one would think is like super high tech and needs to be super efficient, except MH370 happened and then we all kind of got a shock. But yeah, you tend to think that all these things would kind of be worked out, but a simple thing like this has not been translated in India, which is simply ask people what they need the wheelchair for. Now, the SSRs have three different kinds of wheelchair users. One is a person who can walk but not walk long distances.
Right.
Another is a person who can walk a little bit but can't climb steps.
Right.
And the third is a person who needs the wheelchair right up to the seat in the airline. So there are three different categories. Now, if you ask people which category they belong to, whether it's WCHR, WCHS, WCHC, you would have an idea of how much wheelchair inventory you need.
Right.
You would not have this whole, peculiar situation as happened with our friend Abhishek Anika, the poet, who was told that, sorry, you can't travel on this flight because we have run out of wheelchairs. So, at that level itself, you're being stopped. And for what? I mean, now that kind of brings in disharmony between, elderly people and, disabled
Right.
people. And, that whole thing about people are misusing the wheelchairs because, they want to cut the queue or they're not really disabled and that kind of thing. Whereas if you had an idea of how many people need it just because the distances are long, for example, in that Delhi terminal where it's like interminable really, and whether people who are wheelchair users and would need, kind of an ambulift and who would need an aisle chair to board onto the aircraft, that would make life so much simpler. Abhishek is here and he just said here. Yes. Hi, Abhishek. Yeah, so he just had an experience which he sorted out, and this whole wheelchair inventory thing, just open Twitter, search for wheelchair and airport, and you will get grievances every day. It's a mess. Absolutely. What is also a mess is this recent trend of private airports now offering wheelchair concierge services at a premium rate. And interestingly, they are somehow able to offer wheelchair service right from the curb. This curb assistance has been asked right from, the Ashok Kumar committee days, and which is dropped, in the final civil aviation rules, and, which has not been really implemented so far. And so a lot of people are being put through unnecessary, kind of unpleasantness as a result.
No, definitely. And the profit motive can't be the reason why access is denied to the majority of the population. That's a very important point there. Vaishnavi, thank you so much for being with us. I want to end this session with some of your final thoughts on why citizens must go and comment on this bill and submit their feedback either through civis.vote or directly to the ministry. Our platform's right here, civis.vote. You can go there, and the bill's open till tomorrow. Why do you think it's so necessary for all of us to speak up and sort of make sure that the ministry hears us?
Okay, I'm not going to do a shameless plug for Civis, which I have not been asked to do. The whole reason why I even agreed to come across and speak today, which I would not normally do, is because I just love the idea of what the Civis team is trying to do, because I passionately believe in people power and people participating in policy making. The whole idea of pre-legislative consultations, it's something which I really believe in. It's a different matter that with the sheer volume of things which are being changed, it's really difficult to plow through everything. But it's important nevertheless. There's so much more that we can do, but when we do have an opportunity, I do think, people who are passionate about this particular area, and there are quite a few, especially people who do fly, often because, well, the trains are not accessible and there is no other way, should definitely share their experiences. I don't know what will happen. Maybe it'll all land up in their dustbin, but at least you would have done your bit. But why I love the idea of Civis is because it does what what I have rather been suggesting for a very long time that the government should be doing. The MyGov, kind of platform is there, and they should really be, streamlining and, kind of channeling all inputs through that one platform, because it is impossible for anyone to, keep track of 11,000 government websites, to check where, a new policy has come and, to send in comments with it. And another thing is with the Civis platform is, and that's something which I truly wanted with the MyGov thing, which has been done for, a few acts, etc., is that it's visible. We tend to, kind of get so, kind of closed in our own little cliques and circles, and we're not really aware of, other people's thinking. And when suddenly you have a person who has given in an input which could really blow your mind open to all kinds of other possibilities, and that kind of, kind of crowd contributed policy inputs is possible with a platform like Civis. It's a shame that the government is not doing that, because it really should be. So yeah, I think, and I did notice that with Civis also, that there is an option to keep your submission private.
Yes.
Which is
yes. So
great, but just remember that there are always people like me who would love to know what you're thinking.
We encourage
yeah.
responses, definitely, but we're very happy to have private responses as well. If you want to keep things when the government exclusively, we understand that. But thank you so much, Vaishnavi. That was very well highlighted. I couldn't have said it better myself. Of course, we're all really passionate about making sure that your voices reach the government, and this is far too important an issue to let this deadline pass by. So again, the deadline for submitting your comments is tomorrow. Please log on to and give in your comments. And I hope everything that Vaishnavi has shed light on today is useful to all of us, as I'm sure, as it is to me. So thank you so much, Vaishnavi. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your patience joining us. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. And bye. I have to go feed the dogs. So.
All right. Good night.
How do I turn this off now? Bye-bye. How do I turn this off?